Hello, welcome back to Whisky Wednesday. Another Wednesday, another whisky review. So, for the next 4 weeks, I will be reviewing some Teeling whiskies. Now, Teelings are a Irish independent bottler and blender. So they blend kind of craft, presentation, small batch Irish whiskies. It's basically a father and son team, a family business started by John Teeling, joined by son Jack, and then Stephen Teeling. And the idea is they're kind of going back to the kind of small batch, as I say, craft presented. So their whiskies are bottled around 46%. They're non-chill filtered, so they have all the natural fats and oils. For those of you who kind of aren't familiar with chill filtration, it was basically an idea to stop the whiskey going cloudy when you were to put ice in it, or if it was kind of cold on the shelves in the shop. So they were to take all the fats and oils out so it wouldn't go cloudy. However, there is arguments, and people think that if you leave all the fats and oils in, you get a much bigger, a much more kind of concentrated, a much kind of more desirable taste. So that's why a lot of craft distilleries and craft blenders and craft companies are not chill filtering their whiskies. So in here, in this single grain Irish whiskey, all the natural oils and fats are in there. Now this is a single grain whiskey, not a single malt, not a blend. Now single grain whiskies used to be made from corn, but now it's made from wheat, so it's actually a different grain from malted barley. The quite unusual thing about this one is that it's fully matured in Californian red wine casks. Now that's really basically unheard of for grain whiskey. You know, the majority of grain whiskey goes straight into blends. It's matured in American oak ex-bourbon barrels. So to get a grain whiskey and mature it in a red wine cask, completely mature it, shows that craft presentation. I'll get to the nose in a second. The other thing about Teelings as well, they have planned, are investing, and should be opening a new distillery in Dublin. So it'll be the first distillery in Dublin since the Bow Street distillery closed, the Jameson's Bow Street distillery, and moved to Middleton in Cork. So hopefully, for all you Irish whiskey fans out there, there'll be a new Irish whiskey distillery in the heart of Dublin. So, without further ado, let's get to this single grain Irish whiskey at 46%. On the nose. Apologies for the siren. I do live on a main road, so sometimes sirens happen. So on the nose, kind of sweet floral note, bit of kind of honeysuckle. It's about 5 years old, this, but there's a surprising amount of depth there. You get the kind of a fresh cereal note, which you often get from grain whiskey, and a slight bit of cranberry as well. And that'll be the red wine cask maturation kind of coming through. Your kind of cranberries, sweet floral note, honey, and that fresh cereal. Right, let's give it a taste. Now, if any of you have ever tried a young grain whiskey before, you might know there's not a huge amount to it. You know, as I said before, grain whiskey is predominantly used for blending. So young grain whiskey will often taste very thin, very light. However, this got a lot of depth. It really does. So I'm getting lots of honey, a slightly kind of, a slight smokiness. And I know with most Irish whiskies, you don't associate smokiness with it, but I do get that kind of slightly kind of, just smoky cereal note. Let's give it another taste. Okay. Second taste, as I always say, you get way more flavour. So I'm getting that kind of sweet red fruit all around the kind of front and the middle of my palate. And that sweet red fruitiness. I'm getting kind of a little bit of raspberry, so kind of tangy raspberries. Kind of unripe strawberries. Just lots of kind of fruity notes along with the kind of cereal, along with the honey. Let's give it another taste. Kind of a cranberry sauce sweetness comes through as well. On the finish, it's a little bit short, however, that is to be expected. It is only around 5 years old, and it is grain whiskey. It's not going to have the depth that an older whiskey will have, or even a malt whiskey. But slightly spicy, peppery, and that kind of spicy cereal note. It's a really interesting little number. I love the fact that they bottle at 46%. In my opinion, all whiskies should be bottled at 46%. It just gives it a bit more of a depth and a bit more of a kind of complexity and interesting texture on the palate. All whiskies, in my opinion, as well, should be non-chill filtered. Score-wise, I'm going to give that a 7 out of 10. I think it's a really interesting little whiskey. Also, if you kind of mix your whiskies into cocktails and that kind of thing, I think this would go really well as a whiskey and soda over summer, because it's got that fruitiness that you don't get from other kind of young grain whiskies. So if you wanted to, whiskey and soda using the Teeling's single grain, but it is fantastic neat as well. So that's a 7 out of 10 for the Teeling's single grain. I will see you next week for some more Teeling's whiskey review. Cheers, bye bye.